I should also add that by doing breathing exercises, you strengthen your diaphragm because you're breathing in, you're working that diaphragm, and you should be pulling the diaphragm down when you breathe, as well as lifting your shoulders up so that your lungs are given the maximum area to expand into, and that will increase your vital capacity, as they call it. The more air that your lungs can hold, obviously, the more they're going to be able to process. If you're only doing little shallow breaths like this, there's not any air really going in. There's not much fresh oxygen going in. The carbon dioxide is not really being released. You're not going to feel that well. If you have, you're standing up straight and you've got good vital capacity, you're going to be taking in more oxygen generally, not just when you're doing the exercise. That's the important thing. So you will find that then you will have a better health and more energy, more strength, and you'll be able to think more clearly. So that's very important. Well, hello again, my friends and fellow associates. Now, this is an impromptu little lecture I wanted to give. I've been wanting to talk about this subject for quite some time, but I think I can't hold back any longer. I really need to move on. We are living in very, very dangerous times. I hope you realize this, that things seem to be going on, quite peacefully for most of us. Yet we see these forces developing in the world that could turn our civilization upside down without, even a moment's notice. We've got everything from these awful wars that are going on in Ukraine and Israel. We've got the threat of that whole thing extending. There's talk now about Kaliningrad and clashes between NATO and Russia there. We got the whole business with China and Taiwan that could blow up. We are living in dangerous times. And to add to that, we've got volcanic eruptions starting to happen in Iceland and also in Italy. There's a big volcano next to Vesuvius that's pushing out a lot of smoke and ash and sulfurous smells. They're very worried there could be another Pompeii happening there. So we're looking at a time of change, of big earth changes and big changes in our culture, which is under threat as well. So you haven't really got that much time to say, well, I'll put it off. I won't bother with all this, this visible college nonsense. I'll wait until I've retired. I'll wait until the children have grown up. I'll wait until I've got married. I'll wait until I've got my new job. These are all excuses, and you can't be like that because we are living on borrowed time. We're into almost penalty time, in a football match. After the referees had to hold up the match for some reason, he adds on that little bit of time at the end, and you don't know how long that's going to be. So we're living in that sort of dangerous zone between big earth changes that are coming and, where we are now. But that's, not what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm also a very practical person, and you've got to be practical in these situations. It's no use living with your head in the clouds. It's no use waiting with your mouth open for, as Gertrude would put it, roast duck to fly into your mouth. it doesn't work like that, does it? You have to work at things. You have to be present. You've got to be here in this world, dealing with this world and its problems and your problems within it. And one of those problems is that you're living in a physical body, and your physical body has needs. You have to feed it, you have to clothe it, you have to look after it, but it gets ill, doesn't it? And things happen and things break, like your car, you know, it's just like a car. Things happen to your car, and it needs a new tire, or, you know, I had to put a new clutch in my car recently. You know, that's well, I didn't do it myself, I couldn't. But these kind of contingencies happen. But there are things you can do to help yourself, even beyond just going to the doctor. I've talked to you before about vitamin and mineral supplements, and you should be taking those, or at least occasionally, particularly B group supplements, all of the B group. You need those, really you do. I find also, because I have a certain heart condition, I find that I need to take potassium every now and then. It's not something that's ever recommended. You won't find it in the textbooks. The doctor will never tell you about that. But the whole thing about the salt, you know, they say cut down your salt, you know, bring your blood pressure down by, you know, reducing your salt. Well, the real thing is that there's a balance between potassium and salt. Potassium is inside your cells, the salt is in the fluid of your blood. And there has to be a balance, otherwise, you know, your cells dehydrate. And then you feel awful, and you have low energy and all of this. The way to get them rehydrated is more potassium. So, you know, I'm not saying for you to do that. I can't make recommendations. I'm not a doctor. But I can only tell you what I do. And I take potassium occasionally to give myself a boost. And that really works very, very well for me. It might not for you, but you've got to work on things that are going to work for you. And I've been talking to the college people recently. I've been saying about yoga, you really do need to be doing something like yoga, or if you don't want to do yoga, do something else that is the equivalent, maybe a martial art, or maybe Pilates, or Zumba. I've never seen Zumba being done, but I can only guess. Or go for long walks. These things are all very good, but it's very, very important that you do have exercise. But today I want to talk about something else, and that is breath. Your life depends on a balance between the foods you eat. You have three types of food. You have physical food that you put in your mouth, and that includes the things you drink. That goes into your stomach, and things start working there to digest it. And then it goes into your intestine and goes around your intestine, and things are added from your liver and from your pancreas to help you digest that. And then you excrete the resultant food that's had the nourishment taken out of it, along with the dead cells and things that your liver pushes out. That's well and good. But your second being food, as Gurdjieff would call it, is your breath. And you're all the time, you're breathing all the time, right through your day. You know, we don't even think about this most of the time, but breath is what in Latin was called spirit, or spiritus. And the spirit is what you draw into yourself. And if you read certain Chinese books on kind of qigong and things, they talk about the qi and how the breath brings in the qi, and you have to pack it into your muscles, pack it into your legs, pack it into your stomach to get an iron shirt and all this kind of thing. And you wonder, what the heck are these people talking about? Well, they're talking about energy, and they're talking about how you can get more energy from your breath. And it's not just what you breathe in. I'm just going to show you a little slide from one of the lectures I've done for the college. I'm not going to show you the whole lecture, but just one of them here. And here you see on this diagram, the body is divided into three parts. There it is. You have the head, you have the thorax and you have the abdomen. And the abdomen deals with the physical food. It goes in your mouth and it goes down here and it does all the stuff here, doesn't it? The thorax works with bringing the air into your body, your lungs, but also pumping it round, the blood round to the rest of your body. And that's really what this part of your body is all for, in primarily. And then your head deals with thoughts, it deals with impressions. Most of your senses are based in your head. There's your sight, your hearing, the sense of smell, your sense of taste. You have the fifth sense, touch, throughout your body, but most of your senses are put in your head. So your head is processing sense information, information in general. Gurdjieff calls this impressions, and that can be the impressions that you see from looking out into the fields or looking at a beautiful painting. But it's also the impressions you receive from reading a book, from talking to someone, and impressions you receive through your ears, from music, from what other people tell you. So there are this sense of your head dealing with sense impressions in particular, and these are the three normal foods for your body. Now you do have the possibility of a higher sense that can work telepathically with higher worlds, but that has to be awakened. In general, we work with the three parts of our body processing three different types of food. But it goes on from there, it goes on to what happens to those foods. And if I can just look here. Now this is a complex diagram, and we're not going to deal with all of it. As I said, I've discussed this. This comes from the work of Uspensky particularly. It's very, very useful, very interesting material that he presents. But what he's telling us here in general, and as I say, I'm not going to go into it in particular, is how food, the different foods are processed within the body. And in the thorax, we see the breath comes in here. Now, I know it goes in your mouth, but it's really your lungs we're talking about. And it comes in the thorax, and it moves along an octave. Now, I'm not going to explain how that all works, but you could say that there are chemical processes that proceed in stages. You could call that the alchemy of the body. And the principal one starts with the physical food that you have. You take it in here, it follows a pathway, and it goes up here, and it goes up here, and it goes up here. And each stage in this pathway that you could call it the substances or energy follow, produces more refined kind of energies, you could call it. It's difficult to describe exactly what these essences are that we're talking about. Call it chi, call it breath, call it essences. But there's something that it's not just the food that you eat, it's what you extract from it and how that extracted food, what you get from the food, is processed in your body to make more subtle things. And the final product down here, if I can find it again, here, they call S12, C12, is actually sexual energy. So that comes from your food. It's processed, it goes through all these processes and ends up down here. But what I wanted to show you is that you have another octave, your breath octave, that comes in here and goes up and follows a different pathway to come down here as well. And it's not just that the breath octave produces more of these subtle energies as well, it's that it can give a shock, it can give a shove to the physical food octave at the same time and help it along to progress. Now, why do I bring this up? It's because the whole idea of self-development needs to include some kind of breath work. And I've been very, how can I say, reserved about getting involved in what's called pranayama in the Indian tradition. But every kind of religious tradition does have a breath work associated with it, even if it's involved with chanting or some kind of rhythmical breathing. It's very common in Islam, actually, in the Sufi groups. They do a lot of this. They call it zikir. And it raises their consciousness to bring them into the kind of consciousness where they can do things that they couldn't do otherwise. And I've been very, very cautious about this because I know without a teacher to teach you physically that you can trust, it can be very dangerous. And it's not something to be tampered with. But some years ago, I came across the work of Wim Hof. Now, many of you have probably heard of Wim Hof, so-called Iceman. He became quite a celebrity during lockdown, particularly, I think, or just before that. It's rather gone off the boil recently. But he's an extraordinary man that has broken all sorts of records involving particularly ice. That's why they call him the Iceman. Being in a bath, totally submerged in ice, or standing up in a kind of, I suppose you call it not a cage, a giant glass surround that you can fill up with things. Put it that way. It being filled up with ice, and he could stay in there for an hour and a half, and his body temperature, his inner body temperature, would remain constant. So this man, Wim Hof, has broken all sorts of records, including climbing up Mount Everest in just a pair of shorts without a shirt on. Can you imagine that? Or running a marathon in the Sahara, again, with just a shirt on. Doing another one up in the Arctic. Swimming under the ice for amazing distance, holding his breath for minutes at a time. And he's come out and he's been teaching a method of breath control, a method of enhanced breathing. And it's had remarkable results for many people. Now, I'm not going to try and teach it to you because I'm going to give you links that you can watch him do it. There's no point me handing it on to you secondhand. I've been doing it for some years, on and off. He also teaches about cold water showers. Not so keen on that. I did give it a try for 6 months, and then I got COVID and I stopped, and I haven't restarted. But I will do. But I think you would find this breath control very useful, particularly because what he does, he teaches you to do a series of in-outs, like this, and then you stop breathing. You breathe out, and then you hold your breath. Minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes when you get a bit further on. Even go up to 3 or 4 minutes. But initially, you would probably only be doing it for a minute. And then you do another, you take a deep breath at the end of that, hold that for 15 seconds, breathe out, and then you do another, you start again with the in-out. You do 3 rounds of that. And what this does, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about here, is it hyperoxygenates your blood. Now, that will have an effect. It will actually mean you're breathing out the carbon dioxide, you're breathing more oxygen than usual, breathing out carbon dioxide. And the carbon dioxide would acidify your blood normally and keep it at a certain level. By doing that, you reduce the carbon dioxide in your blood, and that makes your blood more alkaline. And the holding the breath allows the blood to come back to normal again before you start doing another round. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, there's 2 things. One is that the extra oxygen in your blood can nourish your cells more than usual, because your whole metabolism depends on this chemical reaction, very complex chain of reactions, to turn the energy in your food into electricity. And we've talked about that a little bit before. That's part of it, and you'll feel, refreshed by that. But also, when you oxygenate your blood, you make it a less pleasing environment for bacteria and parasites and viruses and things of this nature. It's even, it's said to cure cancer because of that. Cancer cells don't like a hyperoxygenated environment. So by doing this every day, you can actually reduce the amount of bacteria or viruses or other pathogens that might be floating around in your body, in your blood. So that's another important part. But also, you're increasing the shock value of the breathing for your physical digestion as well. So all of these things taken together are going to increase your energy levels. It's a very practical way of doing it. Another way you can oxygenate your blood, and I've looked into this, is by drip feeding very dilute amounts of hydrogen peroxide into a vein. Now, that is something I certainly am not going to recommend to you, and it would have to be, if it was ever going to be done, would have to be done in a clinical environment with people who know what they're doing. But I have read that people have cured cancer that way. Even cancers that were considered incurable have been cured that way. I should also add that by doing breathing exercises, you strengthen your diaphragm, because you're breathing in, you're working that diaphragm, and you should be pulling the diaphragm down when you breathe, as well as lifting your shoulders up, so that your lungs are given the maximum area to expand into, and that will increase your vital capacity, as they call it. The more air that your lungs can hold, obviously, the more they're going to be able to process. If you're only doing little shallow breaths like this, there's not any air really going in. There's not much fresh oxygen going in. The carbon dioxide is not really being released. You're not going to feel that well. If you have, you're standing up straight and you've got good vital capacity, you're going to be taking in more oxygen generally, not just when you're doing the exercise. That's the important thing. So you will find that then you will have a better health and more energy, more strength, and you'll be able to think more clearly. So that's very important. There are other sides to it as well, and I'm also a very practical person. So I'm going to leave this with you, and I'll give you the links, and you can look into that for yourselves. So thank you very much for your time, and I'll speak to you again soon.